Welcome to Federal Resume. I'm Kelly Coughlan. I'm the Senior Career Manager here at the Office of Career Services within the Costello College of Business, as you see right there, right there. What side am I pointing to? And I am here today with Emily Carroll from Aston Carter, who has some knowledge of the Federal Resume world. So, Emily, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Absolutely, yes. Well, Kelly, thank you for having me today. And students, very nice to meet you all. I'm looking forward to hearing your questions and helping you guys out as you navigate the job market. But to Kelly's point, I'm with Aston Carter. We are essentially a recruiting and staffing organization. I run one of our teams here in the DC area, partnering with a significant number of federal customers over here. So all day, every day, all our team does is look at resumes, screen candidates, and work with the candidates to get their resume in tip-top shape to send over to the end customer, the client, the company that you guys want to work for. And so looking forward to sharing some tips and tricks to make your resume stand out and get to the front of people's piles.
Very cool. Good. I love having the inside scoop on that stuff. So I am really going to try not to bore everybody to tears and do some death by PowerPoint. So we do have some slides to go through, but I am going to go live on USA Jobs and kind of show you how to use it, how this factors in and all that kind of stuff. So just to start out, we saw a huge shift. Emily, I'm sure you're aware in the last year where we went from, anywhere from a 4 to 6+ page federal resume, which is why they were so extremely different from a corporate resume, which would, usually be 1 to 2 pages, to that federal guideline coming through. And so now you cannot exceed 2 pages on the federal resume, which has some pros and cons. Certainly has some pros for the person who has to read it, but some cons in that we have to kind of really figure out what to chop out and that kind of stuff and make it relevant, just like we do for any kind of corporate resume. So, one of the advantages is that in that corporate or in the federal side of it, they tend to have a more descriptive job description or more detailed job description. A lot of times on the corporate side, you'll see must have a bachelor's in business and a GPA of this and 3 to 5 years experience of this and some communication skills. And you're like, how am I supposed to craft this beautifully tailored, customized resume towards such a vague description? And you really don't run into that so much. And Emily, maybe you can attest to this too on the federal side. They are pretty detailed on those descriptions. Would you agree?
100%, which honestly for you guys will make your job writing these resumes easier because by being so much more detailed, they lay out exactly what they need to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And then some of those, again, I'm getting ahead of myself, but there is a very easy way to figure out what those keywords are, which can sometimes be a mystery on that corporate side of what are they trying to get at, which, keywords should I be touching at in the resume, and the federal kind of just throws it in your face and makes it really obvious. The other thing too, that's kind of the benefit on that federal piece of it, is that a lot of times they will give you a contact name at the bottom of that job description, which is almost unheard of on the corporate side, where it's like, sure, just email us and here's my personal information, and reach out anytime. And so that is kind of nice on that federal side. I want to do a quick poll here too. Post in the chat if you have applied for federal jobs before. Yes, yes, many, many, quite a few. No, once, no. Okay. And you guys know probably already that you can have up to 5 versions of your resume saved on your USA Jobs account. So we are going to talk about all things federal. We're going to talk about formatting and how it might vary a little bit from that corporate side, although as I mentioned already, not as much as it used to. Creating an effective USA Jobs account, have some search strategies, application materials. The only job I ever had to apply for where I uploaded a marriage license. On that federal side, it is different. It is, even though the resume is now closer to the corporate side, some of the other hoops you have to jump through on the federal side are very different from what we see on the corporate. I've never had to submit my marriage license for a corporate job. assessing what that job announcement looks like. We can talk about federal occupations to consider by major, and then we'll go over some questions. And again, I am going to email this out to everybody afterwards, which will have all the hyperlinks to those wonderful resources we're going to look at throughout. So we can use Resume Builder within usajobs.gov. Emily, can you give us kind of the 2 cents on I've personally done it. It used to really be encouraged because they had so many different things they were asking for in terms of what's the salary and what's the hours and all that kind of stuff. Now, when I go into Resume Builder and I tried to build my resume, and then of course you look at what they develop, it kind of looks like hot garbage compared to a really nice corporate looking one that I could just upload on my own, incorporating the information they need. So again, I used to really advocate that everybody use the resume builder because there was all this funky stuff that they were asking for that they don't ask for on the corporate side of things. But now I'm not so sure. What would your thoughts be?
It's always the best first place to start because, to your point, it can make things a little bit wonky, but we can always edit a resume or take the suggestions that Resume Builder is giving you and put your own, I don't want to say swing on it, but put your own intelligence on it. Like if it's looking wonky, edit it. You can certainly do that. But the resume builder will let you know the suggestions and things to put in that you maybe wouldn't have thought of otherwise. So it's a really solid place to start.
Awesome. And you can actually make your resume searchable, which is kind of cool on USA Jobs. And again, as I mentioned earlier, you can have up to 5 different versions. So you can have your accounting version and your finance version and all the different things. So the other thing we talked about was really making sure that you're matching that job description. And the benefit of the federal side is that those job descriptions tend to be a lot more detailed, which can be very helpful. What we're not going to do, and the same thing, Emily, you can attest to this on the corporate side, is you never, 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 ever create kind of this generic resume and send it in and really hope that that's going to land with the employer, right?
I will certainly echo that. One size fits all does not apply to resumes and applying to jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. So the same is true on corporate side, and the same is true on federal. Especially again, to Emily's earlier point, they're giving you all this wonderful information, and it's not really a scavenger hunt to figure out what they want on that resume. So it should be a lot easier to figure out what words should you be using on your own resume. Okay. So we can talk about learning about the position, compiling all the information you need in advance. Because the application process does take a little longer, there is some more information you're going to need. And I really, really, really recommend building this resume out in advance, but also having all of your documentation uploaded to your account in advance as well. So for the military side, maybe that could be a DD-214. I was a military spouse, so I had, again, that's when I had to actually put my marriage license in there. You might be asked for transcripts. So nothing makes you panic more than finding a job you're really excited about and then having to track down all this documentation. You would rather be focusing that time on crafting the perfect resume than tracking down where's my transcript and all this kind of stuff and waiting for it to come in. And I can tell you when I applied, it was right after we had moved, done one of our many military moves to California. Everything was in boxes. I don't know where anything was. And I found a job I was trying to apply for. And again, it was not fun to do that scavenger hunt. So on the federal side, make sure when you build that USA Jobs account that you upload all this documentation that you might need so that when you find the job that you want, you get to focus your time and energy crafting the perfect resume rather than tracking down a bunch of paperwork. Would that be true, Emily?
Absolutely.
So you can see here just a little quick comparison, the traditional corporate side of the resume versus the federal. I mentioned as of this last September, that has significantly changed. Used to be 4+ pages long. Now it is limited to 1 to 2 pages. If you try to submit one that's over 2 pages, it will get rejected. It is very different. Also, what's different is a lot of times on the corporate side, you were scanning that resume is going through an applicant tracking system. right? So an applicant tracking system is scanning it, looking for those keywords before it even gets to an HR person to read it. That's not necessarily the case on that federal side. There's not really a major across the board ATS system that is being used to scan those. There are other components that, for example, and Emily, I'm sure you're maybe still seeing this in some of those federal postings, but the assessment questionnaire, which we'll talk about in more depth in a minute, but the assessment questionnaire is asking you basically, do you have these qualifications? Yes or no. What's really nice about it is that it is one more way it's telling you, hey, these are the keywords you should have on your resume. So it's again just putting them right in your face. But so how it's working on the federal side is you're going to fill out this assessment questionnaire, and then that is going to determine if HR is going to read your resume or not. Emily, anything to add to that?
No, I'll just echo exactly what you mentioned. The assessment is definitely helpful. It's telling you exactly what you need. And the nice thing with this, the change here, the 1 to 2 pages long, is for someone in your guys' position where you're coming out of school, that will be really helpful. Like it gives you the perfect amount of space to really be able to tell the story of what you've done.
Has anyone, I'm really curious, has anybody filled out an assessment questionnaire? I know we've had some folks pop in the chat that they had done some several applications and stuff like that. So I'm curious if anybody has ever had to complete an assessment questionnaire. Scott or Howard or Cream or anybody? Okay. The beauty is you actually get to see it in advance before you submit your application, which is really cool. It's not like an on the spot, fill this out and you never get to look at it again. Okay. So let's press on here. And again, I don't worry, I'm not going to just bore you to tears with a PowerPoint the entire time. We're going to go live to USA Jobs in just a sec here. But review the announcement just like you do on the corporate side, right? And again, I talked about uploading all those documents in advance and reviewing all of the sections. That is, again, maybe the disadvantage of having so much information in that job announcement, as there's so many sections and there's so much detail that it's easy to miss maybe what they were requiring. Emily, have you run into that?
Definitely. Whenever there is a very long job description, it is important to pick out what's going to be the most important and making sure that you are identifying through each section that they give where you've had experience in every section to give yourself the best chance.
Okay, so this is one of the great ways to use AI in any kind of situation. What we don't want to do, and I can't stress this enough, is of course have any kind of AI tool write your resume and then just paste it over and think it's all great. Emily, we can have a whole discussion about this, I'm sure. I'm sure you've seen the good, bad, and the ugly. But this is a really effective use of AI where you can put in that job announcement and ask them to analyze certain sections of it and help you figure out what you need to include, right? So here it says use AI to identify the keywords in the job announcement, analyze the following sections using AI. And again, there's lots of sections in those job announcements, such as duties, qualifications, core competencies. So one of the prompts that you could use in that AI tool would be review and analyze this job announcement and provide 5 to 10 duties or capabilities I would perform as an employee. Include reasoning behind the answer. Now, one of the things we want to make sure that we do in any job situation or any kind of resume, but especially on that federal side, is on that assessment questionnaire, it's iterating what you need to know and what those keywords are. You need to back that up on your resume, right? So I can't say, oh, expert in this, expert in this, yep, expert in that too, and then like never bring that up again or forget to bring up some of them. They are going to look to make sure that resume matches what you said in the questionnaire, okay? And we'll take a peek at what that looks like in a second here. So for example, if we were to put in an HR assistant role into an AI tool, it could say, here's 5 core competencies that you're going to need to back up on your resume. Recruiting and staffing, HR info systems and data management, administrative coordination, customer service, teamwork, collaboration. Here we have just an example of how on a two-page resume, we could do this from a federal standpoint, how we could work in those five competencies that we're just talking about. So you can see under this experience, this person was a research and business development intern. And here's what they did. They worked for Washington Exec, and they have these core competencies. And so we've sort of broken it down into those five categories. Okay, so you see recruitment and staffing, and then they back that up with some nice bullet points there. HR info, administrative coordination. The only negative I would see on this particular demo, I guess, is that I don't see any quantifiers, and I would absolutely be working those into the bullet points. Emily, anything to add there?
I was thinking the same thing when I was reviewing the PowerPoint earlier. The more specific you can be with what you've done, the better. And to Kelly's point, anything that you can quantify with, say, a number, a percentage, proving exactly what you did, whether it's reducing time, increasing revenue, whatever it may be, definitely those key points will stand out more than something that is more passive, like scheduled meetings. Like, how many meetings did you schedule? Scheduled 20 meetings in a week period. That's kind of that key difference that I would encourage you all to be mindful of.
Yeah, and you notice too on this sample that we have how many hours per week we worked, and that is something that they are looking for on the federal side, which we didn't put, we would not normally put that on a corporate resume. The other thing too is, and this is true of both the corporate and the federal resume side, for every bullet point, it is an opportunity to not only work in those quantifiers, but also what were the skills and the strengths that you used to accomplish that task. So for example, it says maintained accurate contact and personnel information. If one of the key words was attention to detail, I would actually start that bullet point. Utilized attention to detail while maintaining accurate contact and personnel information for, 500 plus, 1,000 plus, and work in that quantifier. Emily, right?
Yep, 100%. Those are those keywords that they're going to be looking for. So you can blatantly use them, just like Kelly's example.
Yeah.
For the quantifiers, is there a certain area where we shouldn't use them?
No, and
Okay.
obviously for those examples, I mean, I wouldn't want to throw like five quantifiers into one bullet point, but I would look to have at least one per bullet point if I could work it in. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
use your best judgment there. If it's feeling like it's too much, it probably is. You can definitely supplement and have some of those more demonstrated attention to detail by doing this. And that doesn't need a number necessarily, but as long as there is that healthy medium, you should be just fine.
Yeah, I do see one under the customer service. This person worked at an IHOP and it said, provided courteous and professional service to 100 plus guests daily by managing seating, answering questions, and resolving issues promptly. So that would be a nice way to work in a quantifier there. I will say too, when you get into the military side, those who are coming from a military background really have an advantage here because they're fit reps or their yearly meetings they have, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Evals with their supervisor. They're all gorgeous accomplishment statements that include those nice quantifiers. Now, what they have to do is figure out how it pertains kind of to the job that they're applying for and which ones to throw in there. But I've noticed that a lot. For example, I used to work with folks who were getting out of the military, and so I would help them create their resume, but have it make sense to the rest of us who weren't in the military. And so they would have like hauled 50 tons of dirt across the desert in wartime conditions, and you're like, wow, that's amazing. Not something everybody did. How does that, apply to this business analyst position? But if there's something in that job announcement that talked about performing well under pressure, now you can use that same verbiage, those keywords from the job announcement, performed well under pressure, hauled 50 tons of dirt across the desert in wartime conditions. Okay, if you can do that, I'm pretty sure you can handle this business analyst job. So there's a way to work those in. All right. So again, too, we talked about using the resume builder to get something started on there, suggested uploading if there isn't fields for professional summary. Yeah, so that is the one thing too, that when you're using the builder itself, it doesn't have all of the same categories. Like there's not this nice summary section at the top, and there's not necessarily this skills section that has it organized in a nice way. So there are some downsides to that template basically in there. They they actually added for some of these jobs, Emily, I'd love to see if you have run across these, but adding essay questions, this was a big thing too when that two-page requirement came out this last fall, late last summer, that they added essay questions to some jobs for the GS fives and above. And these were the four essay questions. So how has your commitment to the Constitution and the founding principles of the U.S. inspired you to pursue this role? How would you use your skills and experience to improve government efficiency? How would you help advance the president's executive orders and blah, 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 blah? And how has a strong work ethic contributed to your professional? Um, Applicants will be required to certify that they are using their own words and did not consult AI. To reduce the burden on candidates, these responses cannot exceed 200 words per question. Emily, have you run into this?
Very slowly, but yes, this is honestly a great way to set yourself above. Like with any company, they want to know that you want to work for them. And the federal jobs give you a very easy way to do just that. And so folks who do take the time and put in really thoughtful answers are going to see more success in applying to federal jobs than those who put in just kind of a quick answer. They don't really think about it too much. Like as much as they are trying to not get you to use AI for this, like use words, still make sure that your grammar is correct, spelling is correct, have a friend read it, and try reading it out loud to yourself as well so that you can make sure that everything sounds good.
Yeah, so that again, you can see that's a brand new thing as of just last May. Here is just some more information about that. I don't want to read you all these words, but that's more details on what that looks like. Okay, so here are some resources for you. Let's see, how tailored to the actual position should those responses be? Scott asks. Emily, you want to take that one?
Yeah, good question. Really good question, Scott. Definitely make sure that you are reading the job description thoroughly first. And that's one where you can take the job description, put that into AI, have it summarized for you, because that will identify the key areas. And I would certainly tailor your essay examples to match areas where you have done or experienced things that are within the key targets that the job description is working to get at. So absolutely, this is a prime chance for you to tailor your answers to the job that you want.
So here we have just a bunch of really helpful resources. There are some resume samples on here, salaries and wages, early careers, the internship portal through the federal side, the OPM occupational handbook, la 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 la. Again, I don't need to read every one of these to you, but you will have this when you're done. So here I had referenced this earlier, that there is a list of federal occupations by concentration or major. So in our system, obviously at George Mason, if you're an undergrad, everybody is a major in business, and then you pick a concentration. So accounting would be one of those. So this is actually giving you the codes that you should be considering. And again, there's a link right there that'll go into a lot more detail, but this is what that breakdown kind of looks like. So it's giving you, if you're interested in accounting, here are some of the codes in the job titles that you should be looking at. Okay, and just like your regular resume, you're going to put personal information in here. You're going to have your work experience, education, reference. I will say one thing too, that personal information piece of it, I did not see a slot like I put on a corporate resume. There's that piece where you can put you could easily insert your LinkedIn URL, and they don't have that as a field in the federal side of it. Which again, we talk about kind of the pros and cons of following that template that they have set up for you. There is a piece for language skills in there, job related training organizations. And again, we're going to pull this up live and I'll show you what this looks like in real time. Again, this is what their education section looks like. So if you have not built your USA jobs profile yet, this is what you're going to run into. It's just going to ask you What school did you go to? What program were you working on? It doesn't say concentration. So how I sort of worked around it was I put business as the major and then I just like physically wrote concentration accounting after it. Emily, what would you recommend there?
That works just fine. If your concentration truly is in accounting too, you can put that your major is accounting, and they should understand that most people with an accounting degree would also have that general business component.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. And then it's going to ask you even like, was it semester, quarter hours, all that stuff? Was there any honors? Were you in the honors college? And then there's a nice little piece after this that actually you can put in coursework, licenses, certifications. I would say, and Emily, I'd love to get your 2 cents on this. In this day and age, any certifications you can have that are AI focused are going to set you apart from somebody else.
Yeah.
And that I think is across the board. Would you agree?
Yes, 100%.
There is a couple really great resources for you guys. I will share in a second. I don't know if anybody has used Forage. Certainly, a lot of times in our coursework, we use LinkedIn Learning, but there's just so many free resources out there to get some experience and certifications in AI, as well as other areas. And I'm going to, again, go over in more depth some of those resources that you can use there to help stand apart from everybody else. Okay. And again, experience does not have to be just paid full-time experience. This can be internships. This could be volunteer work. This could be part-time jobs. This could be I'm president of the accounting club on campus. Significant projects you did, if you did a case study, if you were part of like Patriot Pitch or some of the case competitions that we have here, research papers, all that good stuff. Those are all things that you can be incorporating there. Okay, here's what our experience section looks like when you're filling it out, and you can see the salary part is optional on there. If you have it, that's great, but the hours per week is not optional, and so I had to throw in for my sample, if I'm the president of such and such student association, I'm like, okay, it's, I don't know, 5 hours a week, I guess. So that's where I put that in. Obviously, relevant skills and qualities, relevant information comes first, using strong action verbs, right? We talk about, I don't know, Emily, I love your 2 cents, but like, don't start out with responsible for. That doesn't tell me anything. You want to explain why we don't use responsible for?
You're responsible for everything you did in your responsibilities, everything that goes under what you did at a position you were responsible for. There are always going to be a better verb or a better adjective that you can use, and you can certainly use AI to figure out a better word than responsible.
Right. And so to me, I always looked at it like responsible for tells me what you're supposed to be doing. It doesn't tell me you did it great. It doesn't tell me, so if I say responsible for versus managed, right? Led, all these kind of more powerful action verbs we could be using. Provide evidence of skills and qualities. Again, we talked about quantifying that information. So, for example, I don't want to say let's use my career advising position, met with students and provided career advice. Like, versus utilized effective communication skills and knowledge of career resources while serving 500 plus students per month, right? So we want to quantify that. And here's some lovely action verbs for you to blatantly steal if you want to use them. There's many, many, many more out there, but these are just going through by category: communication, management, financial, research, technical, creative. So you can read those on your own time, but gives you an idea. And then incorporating skills into that experience section. We don't want to just mention our skills, let's say in a skills section or in a summary section, and then like never bring them up again. We need to make sure that we utilize them in other sections as well. And a great way to figure out what skills you used is this LinkedIn Career Explorer tool. So I will go back to that as soon as we knock out this slideshow here. And then, of course, the employer can see what you've saved your resume as. So do not kill Emily. Isn't that your favorite when it's called Blue Template 2 version
Oh,
7?
yes. Anytime we see that, it is the biggest. I'm like, oh, I cringe because it's a very easy fix. I always recommend doing something like last name, first name, and then the job category that you're working to get into, resume. So first and last, last and first, that's personal preference for each of you. You'll find what feels the best. But then, yes, make sure that you do change that. It's a very simple thing, but it goes a long way.
Right. And of course, if you're going to have five versions of it saved in your USA jobs, you want to delineate, Samantha student accounting resume, right? Like you can call it different things for your own reference too to figure out what resume is what. Again, we can go live onto USA jobs. I don't need to go through every single screenshot here, but we're going to go there. You can go through creating a profile, what you're going to add. Again, remember I mentioned at the beginning that you can make your resume searchable, which once it looks fabulous, you would want to do. Emily, have you run into people who have had luck with that?
I have. I definitely think the more public you make it, the better chances that you have.
And then we can actually save our search, which they actually have made much more obvious. It used to be so teeny that I could never find where it was at. But now it's nice and obvious. So just like any other search mechanism you would see on like Indeed and Monster and some of the other sites, you can always save your search so that you're alerted to new positions that pop up. Going back to that assessment questionnaire, like we talked about earlier, here's where we could find it in that how to apply section. Notice how much information is here for starters. Like we talked about, there's no shortage of words on these job announcements. Down here on the right, you can see to preview the application questionnaire. Remember, we get to see it before we fill it out. That's what that would look like, and that's where that section is. So think of it as a score that you have to score high enough in to actually get your resume read. Some of the questions on there, it will be sort of like an A, B, C, D, E schedule, choice. A will be, let's say, when it comes to human resources experience, A, I don't have any. B, I have some. C, I did this in school, but I've never done it professionally. D, I've done it professionally. E, I'm an expert and I train other people in this and all that kind of stuff. So from a score perspective, you would want to have as many E's as possible to score high enough to get your resume actually read. Now, remember, the other piece that I brought up is you can't just put, oh, I'll just put E for everything and then read my resume. This has to be backed up, and it's okay to use some of that same verbiage that they're asking you about on that questionnaire on the resume. Emily, anything to add there?
100% to echo exactly what you're saying is it definitely needs to be backed up. But as long as you are able to verbalize what you've done and how you've done it, then definitely score yourself accordingly.
So GS, we can talk about, most people probably know that that's how the federal system works. It is these GS positions going from a 1 to a 15. We can get into the nitty gritty. There's also NAF ones. There's ones that are other sections, and those are all different funding sources, different procedures. But for the most part, you're going to see the GS positions. And you'll see ones that, Emily, I'm sure you've run into this as well, where the position is like 7/9. And
Hmm.
you can apply at either grade, right? So it'll tell you in the description, if you're going to apply for a 7, here's here's what you'd have to put in here to back it up. But if you want the 9, you have to have this extra stuff, right?
Yes, read that carefully because if you do select a GS rank that is different than what you should have chosen, it would likely send your resume out of consideration.
So here, you can just read the nitty gritty here, but usually high school diploma, no experience for G2, bachelor's for G5, master's would be G9 and above. Each one has different steps. And again, you want to start as kind of high as you possibly can because there is, unlike on the corporate side where I could have any job I want. Oh, I shouldn't say that, but regardless of what job I've held, I can apply for any job I want after that, right? And try and make the case. That's not how it works once you're in the system. I don't get to go from a GS2 and then decide that there's a GS14 job I think I'd be a good fit for and apply for that, right? Everything is very structured,
Mhm.
right? So it's like, okay,
Very.
well, after this period of time, you would move up to this to move up to this. Oh, let's see. A couple questions here. GS is information I've not put much thought into. This is important information before breaching the gate into federal. Absolutely, because once you get there at one level, you don't get to level hop. So you want to be very mindful, be like, well, I'll just get myself into the system. And then once I'm in the system, I can just move around wherever. That is not how it works. It does work that way on the corporate side. And like the other side of the platform, but once we're into the federal system, you don't get to take a GS5 and then decide that you want to go for some GS9 job. Unfortunately, it's not how it works. So there's different steps within GS levels that are kind of where you're going to start in terms of salary. So sometimes you'll get it where a step 10 at this GS level is more than the lowest step at another level up. But again, what range can you possibly go to is what's going to increase. So we need to be really mindful of both the steps and the GS level we're applying at. Okay. Again, there's a lot of contact information often listed with these job announcements. So we want to just remember to keep in mind what the contact information there, track what that is, contact them. You can even say, just really wanted to reiterate my interest. I applied for such and such position, want to confirm that you received it, all that kind of good stuff. Emily, anything that you've seen as an effective strategy on that end?
Absolutely. I definitely think that, well, because I really love your point here that says that the resume does not get you the job, but a resume gets you the interview. We've mentioned so many different things throughout the past 46 minutes or so that are additional strategies. If there is a point of contact that's linked to that position, try and find them on LinkedIn, connect with them. It goes such a long way for folks on LinkedIn to get reached out to by prospective candidates for the position, expressing your interest, even just asking them to grab coffee and to network. It can only help you in those kinds of scenarios, provided that you and the individual are both local. But then, yeah, resume is really just one thing. There is networking, like I just mentioned. There's adding that cover letter, expressing your interest, what you've done, and why you want to continue doing what you're setting out to do. And interview prep is a huge one. The more that you can practice potential questions, the better. And we have so many tools at our fingertips with AI that it has made it so easy to prepare for an interview. Even if you just put in a prompt into AI, like, help me prepare for this interview. What questions should I have and what questions should I be prepared to answer? They'll always make sure that you have a question to ask too. So always come into an interview with 5 questions prepared to ask the interviewer to demonstrate your interest and also make sure that this is the right fit for you as well.
Yeah, and sometimes I would counter have 10 questions ready because if they've asked or answered 5 of them in the course of the interview, you don't want to be like, oh no, now I'm going to look like I wasn't listening or I don't have anything to ask. So again, to your point, you always want to, it just shows interest. And we've certainly had employers say, if you ask me questions that came up during the process that are in reference to something we just discussed, it shows that you were listening and interested in it. So keep that in mind. I can't tell you how many students I have come to my office that say, I've applied for X number of jobs and I haven't heard anything, right? I've applied for 100 jobs, I haven't heard anything. And so I always ask them, are you tailoring that resume? Are you doing a cover letter, even though it's not required? And is it tailored, right? Not just a generic one, but are you talking about the organization itself? And then who are you networking with? And there's some missing component there, I guarantee you, 99.9% of the time. So rather than applying for 100 jobs, with some component of that missing, I'd rather have you apply for 20 jobs and be really diligent and focused on, I'm going to create this gorgeous customized resume for this position, a gorgeous cover letter. My LinkedIn is going to look fabulous, and I'm going to find people on LinkedIn who are either Mason grads who work there. Maybe they have the same military background, but I'm going to find people who currently work there that I can do a 15-minute virtual coffee with to get the scoop and get to know me. Because just like anything else, it's who you know. And that only helps you get your foot in the door. And I would be meeting with numerous people who work there. And it is a strategy that I have personally used to find jobs for myself. And I've helped other people get jobs with my company by doing exactly that. So again, this resume is just a piece of that. And for anyone who is like, I keep applying and I'm not hearing anything, this is the strategy you want to use. And it's so much more empowering than just putting all the power in the employer's hands, sending off your resume and crossing your fingers and hoping for the best, right? On that note, should you need some help with either prepping for an interview, going over your strategy, figuring out who can be your new BFF at the organization that you're applying with, we certainly do resume critiques here. We have drop-in hours. We can do appointments, everything in between. Any questions, you can go there. This is our AI tool that we have where you can actually use in the federal and the corporate side where you compare your job announcement to your resume and it'll help you out there. There's also the same thing for cover letters. We just introduced this last fall, so I'm happy to give any of you access to that. You can practice your elevator pitch, you can practice interview questions. So just kind of a lot of cool AI coaching available for you there. We have a couple LinkedIn groups, actually several. The Costello Career Collective is where you can post questions and chat with employers. We also have an international networking group for our international students, and that would be on the right side there. Again, don't feel like you have to crank out your phone right now because I'm sending this to all of you. And then here's our Instagram and our other LinkedIn page. So that Instagram has a lot of fun tips and tricks and tools and what's coming up in a kind of more fun interactive, or not interactive, but like video format. And then on that LinkedIn page, you're going to find job announcements that you will not find on Handshake because we have employers that reach out to us specifically to recruit our Mason business students. And so they don't want to post on Handshake where they have, 5,000 applicants there. So we will post jobs that are not available on Handshake there. And that is my death by PowerPoint. However, let's go live. Any questions before we go live to USA Jobs? And thank goodness I checked what my password was yesterday. So I'm actually in the platform here. Okay, somewhat related. What do we got? Oh my gosh, I love this. I had an assessment question out. It took 3 hours to finish. It was like a GRE. Yeah, for real. Somewhat related, do you happen to have statistics on the hiring rate for federal positions, particularly in the struggling job market? I would say it's not just a matter of statistics on the hiring rate, it's a matter of what department. You just see less announcements in certain departments than you do in others. Emily, you back me up on that?
100%.
And then there's a thing too, like if you notice on a job posting that it's got like a 3-day window to apply, right, Emily? That means we have an internal candidate and we had to post this. So save your time and don't bother. Same thing is, I was just looking yesterday on USA Jobs, and there's ones that have like a 9-month rolling window. We're always taking applications and that kind of stuff. So on the federal side, Emily, I'd love your take on this too, but you're just going to see, for the most part, a longer onboarding hiring process unless they have direct hire approval. And do you want to kind of go into that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Unless there is that direct hire approval, like I mentioned, it will be a bit of a longer process for onboarding. The thing with the federal side is that there are lots of different checks and they make sure that everything is as it needs to be before essentially onboarding can wrap up. So just be prepared for that going into the application process.
But thanks for joining us, you guys, and feel free to hang out if you have questions afterwards, but otherwise you're free to go.
And thank you for having me, Kelly. It was a pleasure to meet you all. So thank you for
Yeah.
your
Oh,
time today.
Scott, and Emily, Scott wants to know what are some quick tips to rise to the top because there's often hundreds of applicants. What would you advise?
Use every tool that we went over today. There were so many things that we shared and ways to be intentional about it. Kelly mentioned one thing that if you're applying to 100 different positions, you're probably not doing the right thing. There really should be, especially at this stage, probably 10 to 20 maximum positions that you're applying for. Make sure you're a fit and truly read the job description and then take the job description, put it into your resume, like use those key things that they're going to be looking for and tell us a quantifiable time that you've done that. Not with every bullet point, again, be smart with it, but use every resource that you have, be intentional, do the cover letter if they're asking for it, connect with folks on LinkedIn, do the networking, and you will very quickly be able to rise to the top. But it's a process. It definitely takes a lot of intention behind it and really dedicating some time to get these applications out there. LinkedIn offers a very quick, it's literally called quick apply. That is a very quick way to not get to the top. It is quick and easy, but it's not always a tailored approach. So the tasks and the tips that we gave today are really going to be the things I would encourage you to focus on.
All right. Any other questions? And you're always welcome, you guys, to email me. I'm going to pop my email in the chat here if you come up with questions afterwards you didn't get to ask. And again, I'll send you an email with some follow-up, so you'll have that.
Yeah, same with me. Stay in touch. I put my email in the chat as well, but connect with me on LinkedIn and best of luck to you all as you navigate the job market. Very exciting time.
All right, you guys. That's all. Thanks for joining. Take care.
Bye, everyone.